Okay, apparently we're streaming live. Let's make sure the link works. Okay, apparently we're streaming live. Let's make sure the link works.
There we go.
Do we know who John's iPad is?
John Brosnan, KC3 PSW.
Oh,
You
hi.
guys hear me? Good.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
I had to enlist my son to help me with this.
Okay, apparently we're streaming live.
Glad you came down, Johnny. Enlist my son to help me with it.
All right. YouTube is up.
Jeremy, I talked to the third ham at Villanova today.
Third Ham. Who's that?
You don't know who that is?
I know quite a few.
Well, the one I know is Bob Caverly.
Okay. Oh, and there's Tim, our speaker.
No, I don't think so.
No, Tim's there too.
We got a Tim and we got a Jim.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I ain't seen you guys in the Coons age.
Yeah. How's it going?
Hanging in there.
All right. Hey, Tim. Welcome to MARC.
Hi, Jeremy.
Yeah, glad to have you here tonight. I think you got quite a setup behind you.
Yeah, and it's not a fake backdrop. It's really real.
All right. Oh, it's really there. So if you move around, it doesn't glitch out on you.
No. It's the real deal.
All right. So how are things out there?
Things are good. Things are well, and hopefully everything is good down with the club here.
The business has been good.
Yes, yeah, a lot of new people coming into the hobby, and a lot of people that hadn't operated in years are back on the air.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of interest.
That's
among
because they have nothing else to do. Can't go out to dinner.
Yeah, so yeah, one thing COVID has done is it's really reinvigorated our weekly nets. We have a lot more people joining that, and it seems like there's a lot more people joining the hobby too. I mean, there's probably a bit of a backlog because they didn't do exams for a while, so we're seeing some of that. But I think there's also a lot of people saying, "Hey, this stuff is useful," especially if I'm going to be stuck in the house and can't get out very much.
Right. Absolutely.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good, glad to see you.
Yep, good to be here.
I see Kai and Lauren are there. They're hiding in the background. That's two of our Villanova students.
Hello.
Hey, Kai.
Where are you in dinner?
Okay. Yeah, so Kai and Lauren are involved with the CubeSat Club at Villanova. So they'll be among the group presenting next month. What they've been doing. So Tim, is the majority of your business mail order?
Yes, yeah, we ship worldwide, and but we are still servicing customers that want to drive in and pick up stuff in Akron, Ohio.
Are you in a standalone building or a mall, or what sort of location?
So we share a building with Summit Racing Equipment, which is the world's largest aftermarket auto parts supplier. So so yeah, we are not standalone, but we have our own 70-foot tower with antennas from 40 meters to 10 meters on it. God willing, here in a few weeks, we'll have our showroom back open to the public.
Sounds good. Oh, let's see, Alan.
Hi, Dean. Is your KC3PTK? Is that it?
Yes, I am.
There we go. All right. Hey, good to
I'm one,
finally.
of, I'm one of the newbies.
All right. Good to finally put a face with the call.
If anything positive COVID came out of this, it was this, because I literally in March picked up a survival book, started reading about it. It suggested I picked up a Baofeng. I did. I got hooked on it, and a couple radios later, here I am, loving it.
All right. Good.
Great.
Lou, were you involved in that tornado touchdown up in Worcester area?
Well, I actually did do the stupid thing of trying to chase it, which was useless. It was, when they're moving at 60 miles an hour, in this area, you can't chase them. So, I didn't really catch it, but then I did go out and I did the damage survey.
Uh-huh.
And initially it sounded like it was in Worcester, and then got some reports from East Norton. So they actually called it the East Norton tornado. And it traveled out to Worcester. So, but
It
yeah,
was an interesting evening that was.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, I was, I had gone out when the tornado warning happened. I went out to try and take a look and try and chase it, which I knew wasn't going to be fruitful, but I tried anyway. And then I came back into town, and there was a fire call, and I ended up sitting at the Bettswood Trailer Park for like 4 hours because there was a tree that was on fire down there. And then after that, I went up to Doylestown to take a look at the damage up there. And then I called the Weather Service and said, "Hey, what are you going to do about the Worcester damage?" And they said, "Well, you want to go?" It's like, okay. So I went and took a look at that. That was crazy. I mean, I'm sure I may have mentioned it in other circumstances, but hurricanes do spawn tornadoes, but that far inland and that many of them in this area is pretty rare. So
Yes.
it was an unusual event to say the least.
It was not a great evening.
No. Yeah, well, my power was out for, my power was out while I was out of the house. I left when the tornado warning came out. Power went out shortly after that. And then just as I got home, it came back on. So.
Oh, you were lucky.
Yeah.
Which tornado are we talking about, Lou?
Well, it was East Norton. It was during the remnants of Hurricane Isaias. I guess it was still a tropical storm at that point.
Okay,
But, yeah.
I'm still, my house is still not finished repair. November 1st will be a year from that tornado
Wow.
back then.
Wow. And they didn't even declare your damage tornadic. So,
What was the biggest thing that held it up, Dennis?
Two things. One was they took their time getting permits from the township, and by the time they got the permits and everybody was ready to go, then COVID hit.
Wonderful. Nice to know the township is going out of their way for you. A few more.
Hi, guys. Who is the person letting people into the meeting?
That would be me.
That's you.
Yeah.
Um,
Guess I'm the
I
bad sir.
invited a friend, Steve, K3WKM,
Okay,
to join the meeting tonight. So if he should show up, will you let him in?
sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
thanks.
letting anybody in as long as they seem reasonable.
Yeah, I don't have my volume turned up here. Hang on.
That lets me out right there.
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you get in, Dennis?
Okay, now I think I got it.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay.
Turned down to nothing.
We had no trouble hearing you, so your microphone was working.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Dennis? Dennis, I haven't forgotten about our planned meeting sometime in November, okay?
Yeah, you'll be pleased to hear that basically everything's been sold. You're the last
That's
one.
great.
Yep. The
Glad to hear it.
The club betted nearly $5,000.
Good.
You won't have to run a ham fest for about another.
That's a ham fest.
Yeah,
worth.
right.
Get the ham fest for the next 3 years.
Tim, your call is K3LR. Do you have roots in this area, in Three-Land?
Yes, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I don't know what the world's going to look like again. So I put virtually, but that could change. But I will certainly keep you guys in the loop with that. And then May 1st will be on the Saturday.
Mike, I think you've got a hot mic.
And then the Sunday that's after that, it's usually the main crowning.
If you hadn't done that, I was going to do it soon, Jeremy.
All right.
Has anybody worked on any interesting things lately?
Work, mostly.
Yeah, you asked about the tornado. It was 2 days later. Well, I mean, during Isaias, there were a number of tornadoes that happened. A couple of them happened down in Delaware and Maryland. There was another one 2 days later that happened in Maryland. And I also did the damage survey on that one.
Well, you're racking up a couple of miles.
Yeah, and I got within a few thousand yards of Joe Biden's house. So, that was as close as I could get. So the tornado actually went pretty close to his house.
Did you fly your drone at any point?
No.
That would get you a visit from the Secret Service.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, how many do we have on so far?
We're at 15 now. We may get a couple more who'll join in as we start. And we got at least one more watching on YouTube. Maybe we'll pick up a few more there as well.
We got a couple of people that are camera shy.
Yeah. As far as interesting radio issues, I got my radio set up, my mobile in the car. So now I've got kind of an interesting setup because I have the hand mic for the VHF and I also have a hands-free mic. I have them wired in parallel. Now in my old car, it worked great. I could use either mic basically interchangeably. In this car though, if I try to use the hand mic, the volume is really low. I'm not sure why that is. Thinking maybe the two mics are connected almost a half wave out of phase or something like that. Has anyone ever seen an issue like that?
You have to open your window a quarter wave.
To get the resonance.
Jeremy, did you say that mics were in parallel?
Yeah, so I basically put a little Y splitter. So I have the hand mic and I have the hands-free mic in parallel with each other.
Are they electric or condenser mics?
Whatever is the standard with Yaesu mobiles.
You may have too low a voltage with them in parallel and it's not powering the mic cartridge properly.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to work all right in my old car. So I'm wondering if the wires are just a different length now. Or maybe just the location of the mics that the audio coming in is a half wave out of phase.
It could be. You're talking about your transmit volume.
Yeah, the audio volume.
Does it change if you unplug one of them?
Yeah, if I unplug one of them, then the other one works fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I just lucked out in the old car. Or maybe I was having the same problem and no one told me. That could be too. People are being evil. Never told me I had a problem before, and now they're telling me I do.
You go to an AB switch.
Yeah, that would be one way to do it. I see Mike is there. Actually, Mike's a friend of mine from Astronomy Club. He became a ham recently.
Well, it's 7:20. Shall we get started?
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club September meeting. My name is Rich Russo, KB3VZL. I am president. You should all know Jeremy, our vice president. He's controlling things here. I guess we'll go around and introduce ourselves. Anybody whose call sign ends with A, B, or C, would you announce yourself, please? D, E, or F?
W3JNF, Jim.
GHI,
Lou, WX3I.
JKL,
Bob, N3, JIZ.
And over on YouTube, we have Andre, AF3IL.
Dean, KC3PTK.
say again, please.
Dean, KC3PTK.
Thank you. MNO,
Alan, AB3FN.
Bob, W3ZQN.
PQR,
Tim K3LR.
Jeremy, N2ZLQ.
Chuck, KB3RLP.
STU,
Jim, KC3 ITU.
A3DS, Dennis.
Mike, KC3 QAT.
VW, X, Y, or Z? Anyone we didn't get?
KC3 PSW, it's John.
Well, welcome everybody. Nice to see you here and hear you. Okay, we'll start with our treasurer's report. Lou, can you do the honors, please?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. With the infusion of cash that we got from the sales for that Dennis has been driving, we now have $15,424 in the bank. So that's good news. We also have 73 members on the books as of this time.
Good. Thank you, Dennis. It was a great job you did. Our secretary's report, Jim Foster. Did we lose Jim?
Well, he's on two calls right now.
Okay, we'll come back. Public relations, Ted, are you here? All right. Public service, Bob, anything to report?
No, at this time, pretty much all of our events are virtual, so that virtually leaves us with nothing to do. We're still kind of waiting on the Vietnam Veterans 5K. That event is still a possibility that it will come off, but we haven't gotten anything positive yet.
All right, so we still have virtual clipboards.
Exactly.
Fortunately. Okay, technical services, Dennis.
Nothing to report.
Well, Dennis, I want to thank you again for the efforts you put forth in selling all that material that was donated.
Let me ask Lou. Lou, did you get the recent check, $2,000?
Yeah, that went in the bank today.
Okay, good.
I got it yesterday, went in today.
All right, good.
All right, Jim, our secretary, anything to report?
Nothing to report as secretary. Are we talking about membership now?
Sure, we can talk about membership.
Well, Lou already reported it. We have 73 members. There's a lot of new guys out there I'd like to get in touch with. A lot of P calls, so try to get them wrapped up in the club here.
Well, even Q now, they're up to.
Oh, I saw. Yeah, that's true too. In fact, there's one on tonight.
Okay, Jeremy, anything to report?
Yeah, a couple things. We do have elections coming up. Well, I mean, there's those other elections over there, but we have our elections here coming up. I'm just getting started with that, so I will send out a note to the membership first about nominations for any open positions, and we will probably have some openings, so we will be looking for people willing to step up and run. Obviously, it's fun to be a club member, but we need the officers to keep things running. So I will be sending out a message about that. And then sometime in October, I will be sending out the ballots. And we'll be doing voting, I guess, entirely by email this year because there won't be any in-person meeting. So that's that for elections. So are we ready to go into programs, or do you have any other committees?
Well, I'd like to ask if anybody has anything for the good of the group at this point. Does anybody have anything to the detriment of the group? Okay. All right, then. We'd like to move to programs. Jeremy, if you would do the honors, please.
All right, I got to change my hat. Oh, one other hat. The nets are going very well. Wednesday evenings and Sunday evenings at 8:30. We've been averaging about 10 to 15 check-ins each night, so that's pretty good. And also getting a lot of new hams, so that's interesting. Hopefully we'll try to funnel some of them into new membership. In fact, I see some of our net regulars are now joining us at the meetings. So again, Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, please join us at 8:30. All right. So programs have been fun for this year. Obviously a little different right now because we're meeting remotely, but that does give us the opportunity to bring in some speakers from outside of our local area. Maybe I'll start with a little preview of what's coming up. Next month, we're going to have the members of the Villanova CubeSat Club, which is a brand new club just started up this year. And they're going to tell us about some of the things they've been working on. Their activities during field day, setting up a satellite monitoring station at Villanova, and also potentially some plans to launch a satellite into orbit. So next month, they'll tell us about that. November, normally we have homebrew night, but we're going to do that a little bit differently this time because everyone's in their home. This can also be a show your shack night. So if you can, set up in your ham shack and then show us where you do your operating. Show off whatever equipment you have, and I think that should be fun. So that'll be November. And then in January, we'll have Ed Fong, who will be talking about antennas.
Okay, if I can ask everybody who is online now to mute their mic so we don't have any interference for our presenter, I would appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to present this evening's speaker who is joining us from Ohio. We have Tim Duffy, K3LR, and you may recognize that name. He is the CEO of DX Engineering, which is one of the largest companies that sells amateur radio equipment in the US. In fact, probably a good amount of equipment in your own shack may come from DX Engineering. So Tim is the CEO, and he told me he's originally from Pennsylvania, so welcome back home, even if this is the other side of the state. So Tim has been licensed since 1972. He enjoys HF contesting, as well as mentoring new hams and bringing new hams into the hobby. He's the president of his home amateur radio club, which is the Mercer Amateur Radio Club. And that's why we're meeting on a special night tonight, because his club also meets on the 4th Tuesday. That's why we're the 5th Tuesday. Tim is also active in RACES and ARES, and he was the 2015 Member of the Year given by the Dayton Hamvention Awards Committee. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tim Duffy, who will be talking about antenna building. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and really like these Zoom meetings. I do 4 or 5 of them a week, and I'm doing them all over the world now, so it's really great. But clubs are the backbone of amateur radio, and certainly it's very impressive to hear 73 members are part of this organization. And I looked up Mike KC3QAT's QRZ, and I see he's been licensed for all of about 2 weeks. And I remember being licensed for 2 weeks, and I was still shaking from my first couple of QSOs when I was 12 years old. And but I feel just as energized about the hobby today as I did back then as a 6th grader. And this hobby has been extremely good to me, And Jeremy, I'm not in Ohio. I've never left Pennsylvania. You know, I'm a graduate of Penn State University. I've always lived in Pennsylvania, although I've worked in Ohio and I've worked in Oklahoma during my tenure, but I've never left here, and I'm proud to have 13 towers that sit very close to Interstate 80, and so I'm 1 mile away from Ohio, but I'm in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, and I'm formerly the Western Pennsylvania section manager. I was section manager in 2016 through 2018. So a lot of things going on here in Western Pennsylvania, and I've been out to very close to many of you. Several times I've spoken at the Frankfurt Radio Club. So they hold their meetings out close. So taking a look at some of your QRZs, I see towns of where there are Frankfurt Radio Club members as well. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm the CEO at DX Engineering. I've worked there for 7 years now. And for the past 6 months, I've been working from home. And all of our sales staff has been working remotely as well. But we're still shipping worldwide and manufacturing some of the most unique amateur radio products you will find. And if you ever have a question about something going on, you can always reach us at dxengineering@dxengineering.com, or give us a call on the 800 number. Go to the website. There's lots of resources on the website. We also have a blog. The blog is onallbands.com. That is the official DX Engineering blog. And we post up there just about every day a new article written by great amateur radio operators like yourselves on a whole variety of topics. So the request tonight, Jeremy, was to talk about antenna building. And so I'm going to talk about antennas and antenna building. That is a very sweet spot for me. We just completed building 12 new Yagis here at K3LR this summer because I was told I had to stay home. What better thing to do when you're staying home than work at DX Engineering and build Yagis? So we'll see some of those photos here this evening. So I'm going to share my screen, but Jeremy or Lou, somebody has to give me permission to do that.
Are you not able to share the screen?
No, it says the host has disabled participant screen sharing. That's a button over on the left side called security. And if you pop that on and then check the box that allows screen sharing, please. Okay, here we go. And Jeremy, can you tell me if you see my screen, please?
Yeah, I see. What is an antenna?
Okay, great. So we're going to, because there's a lot of new hams on here, and that is really great, we're just going to briefly go through some of the basics of what is an antenna. And, you know, it's really kind of magical. What happens is that you cannot see, although you can feel it, the RF coming out of your radio. But the antenna is that device that converts the RF power into electromagnetic radiation. And that electromagnetic radiation is the whole magic of radio. And remember that all these antennas obey the laws of reciprocity. We use them for transmitting and for receiving. And any conductor which could have RF current flowing can be an antenna. And some of them are unintentional antennas. But when I talk about the fact that anything can be an antenna, that's true as long as it's a conductor. And some antennas are better than others. You know, like if you try to light or load up your spouting, that's not a very good antenna. Conversely, if you cut an 80-meter dipole at about 126 feet and feed it in the middle, that's a really good antenna. And so there's a lot of focus on directivity or gain, and that creates additional effective radiated power, and it's measured in decibels. You don't, the D is small, the B is large, because the B is a man's name, Bell, and we want to make sure that we give reverence to that. And feed point impedance is important to match the feed line, which also matches to the transmitting device. And bandwidth is important too, because we operate over a large span of frequencies. And bandwidth typically is specified as one where the VSWR is less than 2 to 1. And as I talked about, the reciprocity theorem, and the properties are the same whether you're transmitting or receiving. Some antennas are dedicated for transmitting or dedicated for receiving as well. There's the near field and the far field. Of course, the near field is very close, within a half wavelength of the antenna. So on 80 meters, the near field would be 125 feet. And then the far field is farther away than that. A little bit about the dipole antenna. This is probably the most popular antenna in amateur radio. Very simple, very efficient. If it's cut properly and resonated, it really does a very nice job. And we have the half wavelength dipole, and the formula for calculating the total length is 468 divided by the frequency in megahertz. And the impedance varies a little bit between 40 and 80 ohms, depending upon how high above ground it is and what is surrounding it. But a lot of times you can get real close and feed it directly with 50 ohm coax. And if it's up high enough, it has a pattern like that. When it's close to the ground, and I'm talking about an 80 meter dipole that's 100 feet or less, it has almost an omnidirectional pattern. There is a way to create gain with a wire antenna, and this is the double Zepp, and it is 973 divided by frequency, but its feed point impedance is more complex, sitting at about 450 ohms, but it gives about 2 dB of gain over a simple dipole. And then there is the extended double Zepp, which is actually called 2 5/8 waves in phase. The feed point is about 150 ohms minus J 800. There is a way to match it using open wire with a 50 ohm section, and you get even more gain. But look how the lobes split. So there's no free lunch. You will have nulls and peaks. And the use of a dipole on several bands is the most efficient way is to feed it with low loss transmission line known as ladder line, and then use a good tuner at the transceiver. If you try to use a dipole on multiple bands with coax, it will not work very well on the bands that it's not resonant on. And that's because the property of coax is when the SWR is high, there's feed line radiation and the losses go through the roof. Ladder line, the loss is so low, even with the high VSWR, that it doesn't really matter. And these are some takeoff angles of dipoles at a half wavelength above ground. And then we also have the vertical antenna. Here's a vertical antenna that is 5/8 of a wavelength. And the secret sauce to vertical antennas is radials. I know there are lots of verticals out there claiming to not need radials. They don't work very well. They work, but they would work much better if they had radials. And that is really the thing that is so important, is to have radials on the ground. And they're typically a quarter wavelength long wire. if you get to about 60 radials on the ground, that's a very good radial system. They can be made of almost any type of wire. They extend like a spoke on a wheel, and sometimes guys also try elevated counterpoise wires that are usually a quarter of a wavelength long. Here's how the layout is. And a typical azimuth plot of a quarter wave vertical and the takeoff angle. You can use short verticals. The feed point impedance can be quite low, so you have to have a matching system. Also, a very effective antenna for a lot of guys use this on 40, 80, or 160 is the inverted L. And you can also use a vertical monopole on multiple bands, but you have to have a matching system at the base of the monopole for best results. Here's a delta loop. This can give you a little bit of gain, and also square loops. And the Yagi is very popular, also known as a beam antenna, designed by Dr. Yagi and Mr. Uda from Japan. It consists of a reflector, a driven element, and one or more directors. And this does create gain and directivity. Here's a typical 3-element Yagi where the reflector is about 5% longer than the driven element, and the director is 5% shorter. So here are some typical Yagis. The top one is on 6 meters, and the bottom one is on 10 meters. And the bottom one on 10 meters is fed with a gamma match. The top one on 6 meters is fed with a T match. And the 2-element Yagi can be made with either a driven element and a reflector, or a driven element and a director. The reflector's design has lower gain, but higher input feed point impedance. Designs using a director have higher gain, but a very low input impedance. So there are always trade-offs in the antenna world. A 3-element Yagi has about 8 dBi of gain, and very popular. Larger Yagis can have upwards of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 directors, one reflector and one driven element. The Moxon antenna is very popular. I'm using a Moxon on 40 meters here at K3LR, and the input impedance is about 50 ohms, so it doesn't take any matching network. It's got good gain and great front to back. And here are some of the Yagi, or some of the antenna details here at K3LR. This is a typical element to boom clamp. This is on a piece of Garolite and using DX engineering clamps. And this is taking a look at the back end of a 10-meter Yagi. The reflector is on the left side, and then a driven element, and then the first director, and then the second director. And this is on a 3-inch boom. And you can see the coax going to the driven element. And here is a beta match. This is on an M² antenna using what they call an ugly balun, which is just turns of coax. This does not work very well as far as a choke goes, and you're much better off with a isolation choke from DX Engineering, which will make sure that the coax is not part of the antenna system. This is looking up at one of the 13 towers here at K3LR, taking a look at the ring rotators that we use to rotate Yagi antennas around the faces of towers. And this is a very powerful way to use the tower real estate. Taking a look at the 7-element 10-meter Yagi, the reflector is on the left, and then there's a single driven element, and actually this is 8 elements, so this has got 6 directors on it. And to create even more gain, you can stack the antennas together. So this is 4 8-element 10-meter Yagis. This is the 10-meter tower here at K3LR, and so there's 32 elements, and each time you add a Yagi, you get more gain. So the first if you have two of these Yagis together, you get 3 dB more gain than the single Yagi. Then to get 3 dB more, you need to add 2 more Yagis. So that's how you create additional gain. And taking a look at the very popular quarter wave vertical radiators using quarter wave ground plane rods. And in several cases, the ground plane radials in photo B are actually tilted down, and that gives a better match to 50 ohms. And this is a ground plane for 70 centimeters for the 440 band. And real easy to make just out of taking an SO239 connector and taking a look at some small Yagi antennas. And then, as I talked about, stacking 2 of them together. This is for VHF. The 2 antennas are half wavelength apart, which would be about 38 inches. And having the second antenna adds 3 dB of gain to the array. Here are some of the antenna construction practices here at K3LR. That's using tapered aluminum tubing that is available at DX Engineering, and then hex head screws. They're stainless steel screws with external tooth lock washers. And then I also use nylock nuts. But you can see the 90-degree cross pinning that is done in each section joint. And you notice that there is some orange-like material around these screws, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Here is the center sections of some of the new 15-meter elements that we did a few weeks ago. This was Director 4 on a 7-element 15-meter Yagi. And this is the center sections. And here are the driven elements for the 15-meter Yagi. And in the case of these Yagis, there is no matching system required. The feed point impedance is right at 50 ohms due to the fact that the first director is close to the driven element. And there's a piece of fiberglass Lexan in the middle. It's a 1-inch gap. And then you can see the 2 points, the 2 studs that will be the feed point for the driven element. It fed just like a dipole. I'm sorry, those were for 40 meters. This is 15 meters here. These are the 15-meter driven element feed points. And this is that orange material. This is known as Jet Lube SS30. It is a highly conductive antioxidant paste that is used to prevent corrosion between the element sections. And here is that SS30. It is sold at DX Engineering, and it is magic stuff. I've taken antennas apart that I assembled 25 years ago with the SS30, and they're perfectly clean. They look like the day they were installed. So that prevents oxidation and corrosion and additional resistance between the aluminum elements. And here you can see the preparation using the SS30 on the ends of the aluminum. This is a 2-element Moxon antenna for 40 meters at K3LR. This was put up in April. I want to call your attention to the coax that is taped on the boom, and also notice that the coax then, as it gets to the driven element, it's pulled away. That is actually a feed line choke, so that the feed line does not radiate due to the fact that there are 40 number 31 beads on this. And here is the driven element on that 40-meter Moxon. Notice that this is the DX Engineering feed point connector, which goes to, it has a UHF female connector on it. And there is the red is the center conductor, the black is the outside shield. That's very important for phasing. There's actually 2 of these antennas used on the same tower, and so we always do right on red so that the tower crew knows that the center conductor is on the right-hand side when they're standing on the tower. And you have to make sure that you always clean aluminum before you assemble the elements. You have to clean the inside and the outside. And so we spend a lot of time doing that here at K3LR. This is the center part of a Yagi going together at K3LR, and that's the overhead boom truss riser, and also one of the insulating plates for one of the parasitic elements. And so that is my presentation on antenna construction this evening, and I'm here for any questions that you might have on antennas or any other subject you want to talk about.
Great. Thanks, Tim. That was great. So maybe I'll start with one question, maybe a polarizing one. The G5 RV, what are your opinions on that? Seems like everybody either loves them or hates them.
Well, I have used one. I came to a field, I visited a field day that was using one, so I was on the air with one on 80 meters, and it was kind of a disappointing experience. The G5 RV, if you take a look at the mechanics behind it, it was designed to be a really good antenna on 20 meters. And what has happened since then, guys have found with antenna tuners, either in the radio or externally, they could actually tune the G5 RV to be used on, multiple bands. But the SWR is high. And the problem with that is that there's a lot of coax in that antenna. And that causes, number one, the coax to radiate because the SWR is high. And number two, the losses go way up. Guys that have the G5 RV that have never tried anything else love them. Why? Because it's the only antenna they know. Guys that have tried other antennas like a full-size dipole that is resonant say, wow, I can't believe how much better this dipole is over the G5 RV. So as you say, Jeremy, there are kind of two sides to that, but I believe in science. I'm an electrical engineer. To me, all this stuff behind me and all those fancy antennas outside are based in science. And the science says that a G5 RV that has a high SWR due to the fact that you're trying to load it on multiple bands where it's not resonant is not a very good antenna, but it's better than no antenna. So if that's the best you can do, that's great. And if you can get 102 feet, which is that magic length of the G5 RV, and feed it with open wire the entire way, instead of this hocus pocus, so much of the open wire line and so much coax. If you get the coax out of the picture, at least you have a fighting chance, because the losses of open wire are so low. It's much, much better than having that fancy, so much of open wire and then the coax. And I get it. It's hard to bring open wire in the house. We get that question every day at DX Engineering. And at least if you can get the open wire right to the window of your shack, and then take and put a 4-to-1 ball in there, and then bring in the a short piece of coax, it works wonders. So, Jeremy, it's almost like that was a planted question.
Yeah, actually, the G5 RV is our workhorse for field day, but it's one antenna. It works all bands. It's not ideal, but it does get a signal out.
It really doesn't work all bands. Jeremy, if you would replace that with open wire the whole way, make it 125 feet long as the radiator, split it in the middle, open wire the whole way to a good tuner, your field day score will go up by 20%, I promise.
All right, thanks. Actually, I have a question from YouTube from Bob Zimmer. He said, how do you keep the 4 stacked Yagis rotating together?
Well, actually, they're all on their own rotator. So, and that's part of the flexibility of that system. We have a 4-high stack on 10, 15, and 20 meters. And the antennas that are on the side of the tower are on ring rotators that rotate around the tower. So there are 4 rotator boxes that are responsible for rotating those antennas. And so 4 rotors. Sometimes it's great to have all 4 of them lined up in the same direction. Let's say if we're working, once 10 meters gets good again, maybe we're working into Europe, we'll have all 4 aimed at 45 degrees. Sometimes we want to have the top antenna aimed on Europe, the next one down is aimed on Africa, the next one down is aimed on New Zealand, and the next one down is aimed into the Caribbean. We have that flexibility because we have 4 rotators. And we also have a very good antenna switch that allows us to switch between various combinations, actually 10 combinations. That's a whole nother presentation, Jeremy. I could go on and on. And if you don't stop me, I will.
All right. Other questions for Tim?
Is that a Moto M keyboard?
What about the keyboard?
A Moto M keyboard? Is that IBM Moto M keyboard on our desk?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
These are my favorite keyboards.
Yeah.
I managed through an eBay acquisition to buy a lifetime supply.
Nice.
Question
like
from newbie.
And the operators love them here.
I have a question.
Yes.
And that is a lot of people, myself included, are in situations where about all we can use is an end-fed wire. And right now where I'm located here up in the mountains, I have a 130-foot wire fed through a 9-to-1 Fallon. And I am able to load it on just about everything. But what is your opinion of that? By the way, it's in a sloping configuration from 10 to 40 feet as well.
An end-fed wire is always hit and miss. And again, it is certainly better than, some very short loaded antenna or something like that. But if it's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. The coax is still gonna radiate a lot. You could have RF in the shack. It's not gonna be the most efficient antenna. It's not resonant. Efficient antennas are resonant. And when I mean efficient, I mean that they actually accept all the power that's going on. There's not an SWR or a matching network involved. But as long as it's working good for you, great. I can tell you this, if it was a half-wave dipole fed in the middle with either open wire or coax and it's resonant, it could be night and day better than what that end fed is. But some situations don't allow for that. And I get it. That's okay. And I've used those. I lived in an HOA for 14 years and I had some really strange end fed antennas. And I tried loading up everything, the gutters, whatever I had available. So I'm with you. As long as it loads up and you're happy, you're making QSOs, get on the air and have fun.
Yeah, well, it does work, but it's pretty low. So it's wonderful. I can get on 80 meters. I get a beautiful signal into Pottstown, which is about 50 miles away. So I think it's a what is that antenna?
NVIS.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. All right, thanks.
Yeah, if you want to hear an NBIS antenna in full-blown operation, every morning at 9 o'clock, I'm on a net that is on 3.983. It's the Western Pennsylvania Health and Wellness Net. We actually started this net back in March when the lockdown happened. And I was bored out of my mind and I said, I want to talk to my friends every day. So we started this net. And at the peak, we were having 100 check-ins from all around Western Pennsylvania. But I have what I think is the ultimate NBIS antenna, and that is a half-wave dipole that is resonant. It is fed with 50 ohm coax, and the dipole is up 20 feet above ground. And it actually has some ground radials below it, but I don't really think that that does very much to help it. But I can hear a mouse sneeze in downtown Philadelphia with that antenna. It is spectacular. And when I check into that net tomorrow morning, if you happen to listen on 3.983 at 9 a.m., you'll hear how I sound compared to the NFEDs and the G5 RVs of the other stations that are checking in. And it can be very, very striking. The secret to it is it's full size, resonant. So it's a 125-foot dipole fed in the middle, and the SWR at 3.990 is 1-to-1. There's no reflected power coming back. So everything that goes to it gets radiated.
Tim, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm a newbie, so for all of you vets, I apologize if this is a silly question. So I'm just starting to study for the general, want to get an HF radio, but I have an antenna issue. So I was given an antenna, 4BTV by some company. Oh yeah, DX Engineering, and
it's actually Hustler. We sell it. Go ahead.
But the challenge is I can only get it in order to keep peace in my marriage, like 10 or 12 feet away from the house. So, and other hams have told me that ideally you need to get at least 25 feet away from the house. So I just can't manage that right now. I gotta soften it up a little bit. But as for right now, assuming I have to go 10 to 12 feet from the house, if I put radials out there, will that be okay? Or I was getting so frustrated, I thought I'm just going to order one of those apartment HF antennas and put it on the second floor. Is that distance going to really hurt it? Because it's a vinyl sided house.
Yeah, it is going to affect it, you know, because you've got all sorts of metal objects around your house, whether it's spouting, electrical wiring, those sorts of things. So it is going to interact, but it's not the end of the world. If you got down some radials, you know, and I always just put the radials right on top of the ground, and then they sink down in, especially this time of year. It's great to put down wire because, you know, if you've ever left an extension cord outside for a week or two, you notice how it gets down in the grass.
Right.
After about 6 months, radials go right down and you can't find them. But
and actually somebody told me to buy metal garden screen. That was some advice. Is that?
Well, metal garden screen is pretty tough because that typically is steel, and that may rust and you'll have more trouble than it's worth. Okay. But the more radials you can put down, the better, especially when you're in a compromised situation. But I would not give up on the 4BTV. That is a great antenna. And if you give it a fighting chance with some ground radials, it'll match right up and you'll work lots of QSOs.
Great, thank you.
Actually, another question from YouTube. It asks how to do-it-yourself portable antennas compare to things like the Chameleon or the Pactenna, and in particular, can they be made as reliable?
You know, we sell the Chameleon, and you can see the reviews, Jeremy, online. A lot of guys really like those temporary portable antennas. They have a lot of fun with them at parks on the air, Walmart parking lots on the air, you know, summits on the air. So Chameleon has done a really, really good job with those antennas. And again, you know, they are a compromise. So they're not going to, there's no magic here. You know, all these antennas obey the laws of physics, and they're laws. And some antennas work better than others. So you have to, it's just like if you can't get any more than 12 feet away from the house, that's what you have to deal with. And but what's going to happen is you're going to experiment. You're going to learn what doesn't work and maybe what works better. that's the fun of this hobby. I mean, if it wasn't for antennas, geez, I would have been, you know, a kid on the street. I've been playing with antennas my entire life, and every day I learn something new. And the great thing is, for some of you that are just getting licensed, there is no such thing as a stupid question. I mean, I've asked all of them. I used to, you know, I'd be on the radio or be on the telephone or go to club meetings, and I was just asking one question after another, because everything I've learned, I either learned at Penn State University or I learned from other hands. That's it. And so after 48 years in this hobby, I love answering those questions. Anything else?
Tim.
Yes.
Real quick question. Where at in Western PA? I'm from Western Pennsylvania. You're in Butler County?
No, I'm actually in Mercer County.
Mercer. Gotcha.
And I grew up in Sharon, and I live in West Middlesex now. So that's about 4 miles south of Sharon. But the only time I really left home other than Oklahoma City was to go to State College.
Yeah, me too. We are.
We are. Penn State. You got it. Great to have you on board, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And great. What a great talk. Is there any way we can get a copy of your presentation?
It is going to be on YouTube.
Fantastic.
But if you go to YouTube, we'll have the recording of it there. Sometimes it takes a few hours for it to roll over, but certainly by tomorrow it should be available.
Wonderful.
And just to let you guys know, I have 3 YouTube, Facebook live shows every week. And they occur on Tuesdays at 1:15 and on Thursdays at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then Fridays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can see the schedule is on that blog site, onallbands.com. And you just click on the events, and it shows the schedule of all the Facebook and YouTube talks that I'm doing. The one on Tuesday is Tuesdays with Tim and Jeff. Today we were talking about linear power supplies and switching power supplies. Thursday, I always bring on a manufacturer. So I've had ICOM and Yaesu and Comet Antenna. And this Thursday, I'll have Compact Antenna on. So that's going to be a good show. And then Friday is a little bit more free flowing because it's getting ready for the weekend. I call it the weekend special. And all these things are recorded, and you can see them on the DX Engineering YouTube channel. They're all up there. If you get bored, you can always go listen to them. But I showed a lot of the antenna construction here at K3LR this year and what we were working on. And here in the next few weeks, it's going to be all about vertical antennas and tuning verticals and doing things like that. So, you know, I've got a wonderful station and a great field of antennas that I'm always working on and trying to improve. And so I like to share this stuff online now that I've been told to stay home. So why not? You know, I've got a good HD camera. Let's get out there and be in the field, show the antenna analyzer, how to use the rig experts. All that stuff is coming up here as we get on further in. And so Jeremy, one of these times I've got a great slideshow on the station that is here. It's one of the largest amateur radio stations in the world with 13 towers and 11 operating positions. You're just taking a look at 2. There's another 9 spread around the room here. So you might think about that in the future. And Jeremy, you can work with Terry. She does all the scheduling.
Okay. Yeah, maybe for next year we'll look at that. Maybe in the spring.
Okay, I'd love to come back.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions for Tim?
Yeah, I've got a question. You use the Jet Lube SS30 on on the aluminum elements, and I don't know. That's I guess that's something that you probably sounds like you've done for a long time. But I'm a little bit skittish about the copper and aluminum mix. And I had also noticed in your catalog you have Bostik Never Sees, Permatex Anti-Seize lubricant, and Penetrox A electrical joint compound. I guess would any of those three also work as a compound to prevent oxidation, I guess? I'm just a little bit leery of the copper. I've always been told that copper and aluminum don't play well. They don't mix. You shouldn't mix them too well. So,
Yeah, I had the very same concern when the idea was brought to me over 25 years ago. And we have researched that with Jet Lube as well. The only caveat is Jet Lube says don't use the SS30 on aluminum if you're in a highly corrosive saltwater environment. So like the Caribbean, you wouldn't want to do that. But I can tell you that before I used Jet Lube, I used to use Penetrox. And in fact, some of the antennas that I took down this summer were antennas that I had put together with Penetrox. And I took those joints apart. And the Penetrox was powder, and the aluminum was corroded. That doesn't happen with the Jet Lube. I can also tell you that we do use the Jet Lube as an anti-seize. The anti-seizes I would never use for aluminum joints or aluminum copper joints, but I understand your concern with the SS30 and the fact that it's got copper in it, but I can tell you that the results here at K3LR, a world-class contest station that has won over 40 different multi competitions from Western Pennsylvania, not the East Coast. The Jet Lube's okay.
okay. Thank you.
We get that question every now and again, and we do have some clarifications on the website about that. But it's nice to hear somebody that is informed and very specific. And yeah, I would not use anything here that I wasn't convinced was the best in class. I mean, using the ICOM IC7851 and not just one of them. You know, there's 13 of them here. It's it's the best radio that I know of. And when it comes to antennas, I am very, very, very particular. And all the coax that we sell, all the connectors we sell, the aluminum, the Jet Lube, everything are the same things that I'm using here at this world-class station. And they're available for you on the web at dxengineering.com.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? All right, let's thank Tim for a great presentation. We're glad to have him here.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, guys, and hope you had a good time. And I'm very pleased to see all the new hams that are part of this organization. And please make sure you go out and try to help somebody else get started in amateur radio and share what is the best hobby in the world, and get on the air and have some fun.
All right.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. 73 to everybody. We'll see you next time.
73.
Take care.